Nearly 3 months ago, the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max arrived at my doorstep, and I ended up going with the 14 Pro Max as my daily driver. I did, off and on, tried the 14 Pro, but I ended up choosing the 14 Pro Max, and I'm gonna tell you why I think this is a fantastic phone, and it really does depend on what phone you're coming from in order to upgrade and if I would recommend it or not. But I'm gonna tell you what I love about this phone, what I don't love about it, and give you my full long-term review of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And before we get into everything, of course, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, hit me up over there if you want to have more of a conversation. We can also leave some comments in the comments down below. I would love to talk to you there. In fact, go ahead and do that right now. Let me know what phone you are currently using, and if you're planning to upgrade, or if you have the new one, let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. And of course, like and subscribe, all that jazz. But let's move on and let me explain to you why I decided to choose the Pro Max over the Pro. And it's one of those things that I really just struggle with on a daily basis because I absolutely love the form factor of the iPhone 14 Pro. I mean, it's just super, it's perfect. It's comfortable in the hand. It is the perfect size. You still get a large screen. You still get all of the Pro features for the most part. Except for one specific thing that you do not get, obviously a larger display. But the most important thing is battery. And so I'm gonna title this section of the review, Battery, 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 because at the end of the day, when you're using these Pro devices and you're using them as much as I do, which is very sad and I really should cut back, but for work and just, you know, at the end of the day, lounging around, consuming some content, battery is important. And this phone just straight up cannot hold up with what I wanna use it for and how I wanna use my phone each day. This phone can. I have never once needed to charge this phone out of necessity during a normal day's use. Maybe I've charged it just because I'm like, you know what, I'm going somewhere, I might be using my phone a little bit more, and I just like to have the extra battery, but on a normal all-day use, I have never once thought about charging. This has plenty of battery life before I go to bed around 11 or 12 and put this on the charger. This one I've had to charge before I've even left this office going home, so around 5, 6 p.m., that's not gonna cut it for me. Even if the form factor is great, battery life is not. And you know, these phones have a feature that I really do like, and that's always on display. And you know, Apple made some improvements with the latest 16.2 update, which by the way, you can check out the video here in the upper right corner. That just came out just recently. And that update gives you the customization options for always on display, basically giving you the ability to turn off the wallpaper so that you don't see any wallpaper at all, no colors, no nothing. It definitely helps save on battery life because it's making a OLED screen black, which means it shuts off and does not need to consume any power for a black display. With that before, you had any kind of picture or anything, people could not only see it, and maybe if you had like a family photo that you didn't want every person to see when you had your phone lying face up on a table or something, but also, you know, it consumes battery life. And so that's one thing. And also you can turn off notifications too if you want to. I think the whole point of an always on display is to see the notifications that come through and then kind of determine whether you want to interact with it or not. And so those improvements do help, but still it eats up a lot of battery for the 14 Pro compared to the Pro Max. If you got the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you can keep those features on that might consume a little bit more battery, but if you're using them, don't be afraid to use it. You're not gonna need to run to a charger by 5 or 6 p.m. At least I did not have to every day when I use this phone. I would hate to push you away from the rest of this video, but if battery life is your #1 thing on your priority list for whether or not you go Pro or Pro Max, you don't really need to watch the rest of this. My high recommendation is to go for the Pro Max. If form factor and battery are kind of 1A, 1B, well, then stick around. There are some other things that maybe might sway you into going to a different direction one way or another. I do love the form factor. Battery for me trumps that, and so I'm gonna go with the Pro Max. And as far as durability goes, this kind of applies to both phones, but it's pretty good. I do think that the back has never really been a problem for me. You still get that frosted matte glass here, and I really do love this look. By the way, the color of choice for me is definitely the, I think they call it space black or something, I don't know. It's the black one. It's basically a matte black phone. It looks great. I love the look of the stainless steel that's in black, but there are a few things that I've noticed, and I think this would probably happen to the purple model as well. This is probably the next best color. I just haven't used this phone enough for daily wear and tear to show. But here at the bottom, you can see right there, maybe it won't kind of happen on camera to where you can see it, but if you're thinking, oh, that's just light reflection, no, that white that's going around this corner here, that's the aluminum or the stainless steel, that's like being scraped off, and it's no longer that black frame just because of, you know, daily wear and tear. And obviously that's happening right there as well. Obviously you'll notice fingerprints are still an issue with the stainless steel, and it looks pretty gross on the black version, but I still think it's worth it for the trade-off of having this really nice looking color. I have not noticed a lot of scratches on the stainless steel for the black version compared to like the silver model here. Now this was a year's worth of use, but I mean, there are so many micro scratches on this iPhone 13 Pro Max with stainless steel that it's pretty gross. And also the display, I do have one massive scratch here already that you might be able to pick out there. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm gonna see if I can get it to show up, but that is not the best. And there's a couple of deep scratches here. I do use my phone without a case and without a screen protector, and so if you're somebody who uses a case or a screen protector, you don't really need to worry about this. But if you ever want to go quote unquote naked with your phone, this is the 3 months of what it looks like if you're just using your phone like a normal person without a case or screen protector. And so yeah, there's a couple of deep scratches. You know, obviously you want to separate when putting it in your pocket with other things that could scratch it. Sometimes that's just not the case for me, and it just happens. This is 1 year's worth of the 13 Pro Max. There is a massive deep scratch there that you can see. And that's really the only thing. I mean, there are a couple of other ones, but that's the biggest one. After a year's worth of use, the back frosted glass here kind of gets scuffed away. There's some marks there of wear and tear, but for the most part, these phones hold up really, really well. And so I expect the same thing with these two. I've just pointing out some of the wear and tear that I've noticed over the last 3 months. The always-on display and dynamic island are two new features that come to the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max only. So anything that I talk about with these two features definitely goes for the Pro Max and the regular Pro. And I like both of those. I think the dynamic island is not as useful as we might have thought. When Apple first introduced, they had a really good marketing campaign for that dynamic island. It made it look really, really cool. And it is cool, and still sometimes it like makes me kind of in awe that there's an interactable part of the screen here that's technically just kind of hiding a design, not flaw, but something that they needed to do in order to fit all of the tech up here. And so, yeah, I really do like when I get to interact with the dynamic island. It's just not always useful in everyday life. I'll also say, since the introduction of live activities, the dynamic island has been very useful for me for sports scores. I really love watching the Cavs. That's my local NBA team. And I really can't watch all 82 games. That's just not something I can swing, but I can keep up with it by having the sports scores in my dynamic island or on the lock screen for live activities. And so that is a really cool and useful feature. But I still think that, you know, always on display kind of ranks above that in terms of importance and usefulness. I'll also say that my other favorite feature is something that is kind of underrated in my opinion, and that's how bright this display gets. And primarily when outside, the Pro Max and the regular Pro can top off at 2,000 nits of peak outdoor brightness. And that happens automatically, something you can't toggle on. I kind of wish it was something you could toggle on, but I think that could end poorly for a lot of users. And so Apple does it automatically, and it works really well. When I'm outside and it's bright outside, it automatically kicks on. You definitely notice it, and it definitely is useful. I have seen so many people around me with other iPhones that don't have that feature, and they're struggling, they're squinting, they can't really see, they're turning up their brightness all the way. This happens automatically. I can see everything. I can even have sunglasses on while outside in the sun and see my phone's display perfectly fine. And so huge, huge, huge feature in my opinion, especially for someone who likes to use their phone outside or is outside a lot. You don't have to worry about the sun being an issue. And next we go on to the major feature that definitely distinguishes Pro from non-Pro, and that's the camera system. With the non-Pro, you get 2 lenses. With the Pro and the Pro Max, you get the 3 lenses here. You get that telephoto lens. It's pretty similar to last year's telephoto. Still tops out at 3x optical. Next year with the 15, there's some rumors that it could go up to 10x potentially. There's some other other phones out there that do a really good job of going up a little bit more than 3x optical, and then also have software features in place to go to 30x with really good clarity, even 100x with Samsung's Ultra, or the space zoom on the Ultra, I believe is what it's called. And so, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing here with this system is the new 48 megapixel main sensor, and you can take a 48 megapixel raw photo. And that's really cool. And that helps you with the punch-ins and the crops, and being able to take a photo and then crop in a little bit and not lose any quality whatsoever. It's not something I use regularly on it. Actually, it's not something I use at all on my daily basis. I've tested it out before, and sometimes I remember to turn it on, but like 98% of the time, it is just take your phone out, take a picture, and move on. And this is by far the best iPhone at those point and shoot pictures. Definitely one of the best phones out there for photos in general. I would say it's right up there with the Pixel 7 Pro. But for video, it is the best camera smartphone out there on the market, in my opinion. Does a fantastic job. And this year you get cinematic mode that can go to 4K 24 frames per second if you would like. There's the active mode, which gives you like gimbal style stabilization. I have never once used that outside of testing, and I don't plan to, and so it's there if you need it, but personally I don't think the average consumer really needs to use that all that often. But it still takes incredible photos, as you can see from what I've been showing you, and I personally really love the cameras on the Pro and Pro Max, and it's definitely worth the upgrade from the non-Pro if that's what you were thinking of in terms of importance of cameras up there. Go with the Pro and Pro Max. And so at the end of the day, I love my 14 Pro Max. I would recommend it to anyone that asks me whether they should buy it or not. And honestly, if you're coming from an 11 or older, yes, upgrade, get the Pro Max, in my opinion, unless battery life isn't that big of a deal for you and you choose the form factor over battery, then you can go with the Pro. But for me, battery life is a huge deal, and I kind of like the big display. Even though I love the form factor, at the end of the day, I pick up the Pro Max again, and I'm like, man, this is great, especially for consuming content, and you get that extra battery life. And so 14 Pro Max, by all means, upgrade to it if you're thinking about it. It is worth it. You will not be disappointed. And let me know in the comments down below what you think. And again, what phone you have, and if you're thinking of upgrading, what are you going to get? And if you have the 14 Pro or Pro Max, what are your thoughts about it? Let me know in those comments down below. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.